You are watching and listening to the Electronic Intifada live stream. I'm Nora Barrows-Friedman here with my colleague Ali Abunimah. We have an update on one of the key figures who appeared in the Sheryl Sandberg film Screams Before Silence. That was the film released around this time last year, which was promoted as a, quote, documentary film on the sexual violence committed by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. But a year ago on the Electronic Intifada live stream, we exposed Screams Before Silence as a total fraud. And you can find that segment on our YouTube channel. Or you can also find it in the article by Ali from last May, headlined Debunking Screams Before Silence, Sheryl Sandberg's 7 October mass rape film. Sandberg is, of course, the billionaire former Facebook executive who has been a key force in promoting Israel's atrocity propaganda and lies about what happened that day. She's currently promoting and appears in a new film called October 8th, which purports to be a documentary about, quote, the explosion of anti-Semitism on college campuses. And it smears the Palestine solidarity movement as being pawns of Hamas, Iran, China, and Russia. But today we're going to be talking about one of the characters in Screams Before Silence, a man called Rami Davidian, an Israeli who claimed to have rescued hundreds of Israelis on October 7th. He's also a key witness for Israel's mass rapes narrative. He's just been exposed, as we discussed last week, by Israeli mainstream journalists as a total fraudster. An expose of Davidian's fabrications and lies was set to be broadcast by Israel's Channel 13 last Sunday until the network's CEO stepped in and ordered the report to be censored. And that is causing an uproar in Israel. Ali, before we get into the new developments, remind us who Rami Davidian is.
Yeah, Rami Davidian describes himself as a farmer from Moshav Patish, an Israeli colony a few miles east of Gaza. And as we've reported before, he's been treated as a national hero in Israel for his supposed exploits on October 7th, 2023. For example, he was invited to participate in Israel's official Independence Day celebrations last year, which were broadcast on national television. Here's a clip of that.
Rami Davidian. ממושב פטיש, בן שרה ועזריה זיכרונם לברכה, מסי משואה זו לכבודכם האחים והאחיות שלנו, שלא הצלחתי להציל. אין יום אין יום שאנחנו לא חושבים עליכם.
Yeah, and he said basically that I'm Rami Davidian from Moshav Patish. This is a tribute to you, our brothers and sisters, who I did not succeed in saving. There is no day that I do not think about you. And the Israeli government set up an official website honoring the so-called heroes invited to participate in the Independence Day ceremony. And there's a whole page dedicated to Davidian's heroism. It states, quote, hundreds of the survivors of the Nova Party owe their lives to one man. For an entire day, Rami Davidian from Moshav Patish rescued survivors from every possible location, from the fields, the orchards, and the party, while enlisting the help of family and friends to help with the rescue mission. And it concludes, for risking his life to save many lives from incessant fire, Rami Davidian was chosen to light a torch on the 76th Independence Day of the State of Israel. And in addition to being celebrated in Israel, where he has given countless lectures and inspirational talks, he's also gone on international speaking tours to Italy, and he's traveled to universities and synagogues across the United States. I found stories about him speaking at Duke University in North Carolina, at the University of Texas, as well as at venues in Ohio and Florida. Take a look at this event, which was held at a private home on Long Island, New York last June, titled An Evening with Rami Davidian, the hero of the Nova Festival attack. The ticket prices started at $118 per person, and they say in the invitation, quote, all donations will go directly to Rami and his family as he is unable to work and needs our support. And here's a crowdfunder set up for Rami Davidian by a pro-Israel activist in California. It's titled "Support Israeli Hero Rami Davidian," and it has raised more than $84,000. It also claims that Davidian is suffering from trauma and that, quote, "Rami is unable to work right now. He needs our help." So these are the kinds of speaking events he's been doing, directly profiting from his claims of heroism and carrying out propaganda work on behalf of the Israeli government.
And remind us what role Davidian played in the Sheryl Sandberg film Screams Before Silence.
Yeah, Sandberg presented Davidian as a key witness for the supposed mass rapes on October 7th. And as regular viewers and readers of the Electronic Intifada will know well, we have thoroughly debunked that whole narrative. To this day, there is not a single credible corroborated claim of rape on that day, and not a single positively identified victim of a rape, living or dead. So Davidian played a key part in the effort to shore up a narrative that had already crumbled. And let's actually go back to that Electronic Intifada live stream episode from May 1st, 2024, when we were the first journalists, as far as I know, to examine Davidian's claims critically and conclude that they could not possibly be true. But before we roll this clip, I just want to warn people that it does contain frank discussion of alleged sexual violence. This is a clip of a man called Rami Davidian, who claims to have single-handedly rescued hundreds of people from that supernova rave on October 7th.
ראיתי בחורות קשורות עם הידיים כפות. מישהו רצח אותם, אנס אותם, התעלל בהם, פה בעצים האלה. הרגליים שלהם היו פתוחות. מי שרואה זה יודע שהתעללו בבנות. מישהו הפשיט אותם, מישהו אנס אותם. החדירו לעברים הפנימיים שלהם כל מיני דברים, כמו קרשים, כמו ברזלים. מעל 30 בנות נרצחו ונאנסו פה. הייתי צריך לסגור את הרגליים שלהם, לכסות את הגופות שלהם. שאף אחד לא יראה מה שאני ראיתי, אף אחד. אף אחד לא יכול לראות דברים כאלה.
It's okay.
I don't know what to say about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, just to summarize for those who are listening and couldn't read the subtitles. So Rami Davidian, they're standing in the forest where this supernova rave took place, and he claims that he saw women tied to trees, who had been raped, who had been burned, who had had objects like iron rods and wooden boards inserted into their private parts. And then he says that, I mean, no one else was around, according to him. It was just him. And then he says what he did is that he, if their legs, again, I'm sorry about how graphic this is, but he, you know, if their legs were spread, he closed their legs, he covered everything up, and he said, so no one else could see. So no one else could see. So what's interesting about that is if we are to believe what he's saying, then he is admitting that he actually tampered with a major crime scene in order to destroy the evidence of the things he says he saw, so that no one else could ever see them. And that turns out to be very convenient indeed, because Rami Davidian is a huge liar.
Yeah. And in that live stream from a year ago, it looks like I've aged about 10 years since then, you went on to explain in detail about why you concluded that Davidian was a liar, both about the mass rape crime scene we just heard him describe to Sheryl Sandberg, as well as the heroic rescues he claimed to have carried out. And listeners and viewers can go back and watch that live stream to see the rest of that report. But bring us up to date. What's happened in the last year since?
Well, what happened is that the source, 𝐓𝐿, an investigative news show on Israel's Channel 13, prepared a report that was set to air this past Sunday, exposing Rami Davidian as having fabricated those tales of heroism. You can actually see the trailer of the program, which is titled Rami Davidian, The True Story. But on Friday, the show's anchor, the high-profile Israeli journalist Raviv Drucker, revealed that the network had decided to cancel the broadcast. I think, as you said, we mentioned that last week. In a post on Twitter X on April 4th, Drucker wrote, quote, today in the early afternoon, the CEO of Channel 13, Emiliano Kalemzuk, called and said that he decided not to broadcast the segment on Rami Davidian that was scheduled to be broadcast on Sunday.
And did he explain why the broadcast was canceled?
Drucker says that he pushed back forcefully and asked the CEO to watch the report, but ultimately the decision not to air it was final. Drucker does not spell out why, but to many observers it was obvious. The trailer apparently created a backlash from Davidian's supporters, perhaps even from higher powers. We don't know for sure. Given the heavy investment in Davidian as a hero and witness of October 7th, including by the Israeli government and its international propaganda apparatus, his exposure is definitely a huge embarrassment.
Yeah. Did Raviv Drucker give any details of what the Channel 13 investigation found out about Davidian, or was it kind of vague?
He gave some broad outlines, and this is what Drucker wrote about Davidian's stories. Quote, these are not slight exaggerations, mildly inflating the number of those rescued. Absolutely not. These are stories made up from beginning to end, hair-raising stories that never, ever occurred. I wrote about that in an article for the Electronic Intifada that we published on Friday, and that's actually what I meant. We didn't discuss this on the live stream last week, but we did report it on the website. And the headline there is, key 7 October mass rapes witness denounced as liar by Israeli reporter. But since I wrote that article, more details have come out. On Saturday, that was on April 5th, Drucker published a second post on Twitter with a statement from Itai Rom. Rom is the Channel 13 journalist who actually led the investigation into Davidian.
Right. And what did Itai Rom reveal?
Well, Rom revealed a lot more. He said, he started off by saying, quote, because the management of Channel 13 has frozen the broadcast of the investigation, at this stage we cannot explain to you exactly which lies are involved and which are the correct facts. But Itai Rom does indicate that this was a very detailed investigation that uncovered a massive fraud by Davidian. The reporters clearly spoke to a lot of people, and both Raviv and Drucker also say that many of the leads that led to the unraveling of Davidian's tales were from people who had been at those places on October 7th and so could falsify what Davidian has been saying. Rom gives this overview of what the investigation found. Quote, we discovered stories that are breathtaking cinematic scenes, but any connection between them and reality is purely coincidental. We saw hundreds of people thirstily drinking his words in lectures, shedding tears and clapping with excitement and admiration in response to absurd and fabricated descriptions of heroism. We discovered rescues that Davidian tells about that really happened, but they weren't carried out by him, but by other people. End quote. So that's what Rom says now. I want to show you one other clip from our live stream from a year ago of what we said just after we examined one of Davidian's tales of heroism and pointed out how key details in his story changed in the different versions of how he told it. So as you can see there, what you immediately notice there is that these accounts are very different. In the first one, he somehow scares off the 5 armed terrorists who've supposedly come to kill everyone in sight just by scolding them in Arabic. He doesn't say anything about fighting them off with a pipe. He just managed to either charm them or scare them or convince them by pretending to be a Muslim. He is in fact Jewish, but he says he pretended to be a Muslim. In the second story, he heroically knocks 5 armed terrorists, as he calls them, to the ground with nothing but a piece of pipe. I mean, what do you think? How credible is that?
I mean, he's watched a lot of movies.
Right. This is like a script from a superhero movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious to us that it was like a movie script, and I just remembered that when 𝐓𝐻𝐿 mentioned, these cinematic scenes that bear no relation to reality.
Right. Do either Raviv Drucker or 𝐓𝐻𝐿 say anything specifically about Davidian's claims regarding the supposed mass rape crime scene that Davidian describes in the Sheryl Sandberg film, Screams Before Silence?
Yes. 𝐓𝐻𝐿 makes clear that they found evidence that Davidian was lying about that too. And he writes, quote, "We discovered that even on the very sensitive issue of the sex crimes committed by the terrorists, Davidian is not exactly careful to tell the truth." He doesn't go into more detail than that, though.
Yeah, interesting. What does he say about the cancellation of the broadcast and the backlash against Channel 13 for even doing this report?
Clearly, both Raviv Drucker and 𝐓𝐻𝐿 are very angry, understandably. And Rom says this, quote, "When we set out, we wanted, like many other media outlets in Israel and around the world, to tell the story of Davidian on October 7th, with one difference. We decided not only to turn on the camera and let Davidian speak, but to do something else that is a little less common, to check things out." He goes on, "This sin, the sin of fact-checking, is now the subject of great public outrage." And then 𝐓𝐻𝐿 adds, "If we had acted like the rest of the media and simply let Davidian speak without checking the facts, there would have been no problem broadcasting the report. Because we did check, a campaign has emerged in recent days that asserts Davidian's right to lie to the public in countless interviews and lectures, and even to raise funds from donors who believe that his financial situation is difficult, and to block us from telling the public why these are lies." End quote. And according to Rom, Davidian told the Channel 13 team that he is not in financial need, and claims that some of these fundraisers, which state clearly and publicly that all the money will go to him personally, that they were started without his knowledge.
Ali, what can we take from this?
Well, once again, massive Israeli lies have been exposed, and once again, it was independent media who got there first. We told everyone that Rami Davidian was a liar a year ago, and all we did here at the Electronic Intifada was do our jobs as journalists of looking at things skeptically and critically and asking the right questions. Even without the massive investigation undertaken by Channel 13, we found enough discrepancies, enough things that just didn't add up, that we could say with confidence that we were looking at a liar and a fraud. And then, when it comes to the detailed expose of the hoax, it came from within Israel itself. Channel 13 is, of course, an Israeli channel, but as the journalist there said, it was disgruntled Israelis themselves who brought the truth out. I think another very important message is that this is not just about Rami Davidian. His lies would not have gone anywhere without this huge Israeli government and Israel lobby propaganda apparatus and the complicity of Western media.
Yeah. Remind us of some of the ways that this particular hoax was promoted in the US and used to manufacture consent for this genocide.
Yeah, well, you can see that Screams Before Silence was heavily pushed in US media. Here, for example, is a tweet from the New York Times promoting an article by Bret Stephens claiming that, quote, "To watch Screams Before Silence is to be disabused of any lingering doubts about what Hamas did." That article explicitly mentions Rami Davidian. It was also promoted in the Washington Post, and Davidian is also mentioned in that article as a credible witness. The film was screened on campuses across the United States. It was even screened at the White House by Vice President Kamala Harris during the Biden administration, which undoubtedly gave it enormous publicity and credibility. And here's Sheryl Sandberg herself talking to CNN's Jake Tapper on April 30th last year, promoting Screams Before Silence.
And I'm hoping that when people can hear firsthand in this documentary from witnesses, from first responders, from people, heroes who walked into fields trying to save people. And I stood in the field with this amazing man, Rami, and he showed me trees and he said, crying, there were naked women tied to these trees, bloodied, legs spread, crying that he didn't get there early enough to save them. I hope when people see this, they will stop denying this happened or stop ignoring this happened and put some of that moral energy and some of that outrage to this issue as well.
So you can hear Sheryl Sandberg directly referencing Rami Davidian in order to shame people into believing the mass rapes narratives and the lies he told. And Jake Tapper and CNN have been a major platform for this and other October 7 hoaxes, atrocity propaganda, and fabrications. I've written to Jake Tapper to ask him if he plans to inform CNN's viewers about how they were misled by Sandberg. We will let people know if we get an answer, but I haven't received one so far. It's also notable that more recently, Davidian's lies are cited as evidence in a report by an all-party group of British lawmakers, the so-called 7 October Parliamentary Commission. And by the way, there are indications, they don't name him, but there are indications that match up with, or accounts that match up with Rami Davidian's lies in that UN report by Pramila Patten published last year. So they appear to have relied on him too.
Wow.
So not only was Davidian's fake testimony used to justify Israel's genocide, but while Davidian was paraded around as a saintly humanitarian and courageous rescuer, all the while enriching himself, he actually used his newfound fame to directly incite genocide and extermination of Palestinians, something you never see in the many glowing media reports treating him as a hero. But here he is speaking on an Israeli podcast called 𝐄 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐿 last year, calling on Israel to, quote, wipe out Gaza. There's nothing good about them.
למחוק את עזה. למחוק את עזה. אין טוב בהם. גם נהרוג להם 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 20,000. זה לא יעזור. הם רוצים להשמיד אותנו כעם, כיהודים. גם עכשיו נעשה מה שתעשה, זה יחזור. ה7 באוקטובר הבא יחזור והם יהיו יותר חכמים, כי אם נסתכל על ההיסטוריה, בכל מבצע הם יותר חכמים מאיתנו, הם לומדים הרבה יותר מהר מאיתנו.
Yeah. So there he is. He's saying no matter how many Palestinians we kill, it won't be enough unless we wipe them all out. That's what Rami Davidian says. This great humanitarian, this bleeding heart.
Yeah.
And Sheryl Sandberg's film, in which his lies, not just the lies of Rami Davidian, but the lies of others whom we identified and exposed last year, was used, is still being used to distract and justify from this ongoing genocide. Many people were complicit in this, but now that yet another hoax has been definitively debunked, there is silence in US media. Ironically, there are reports in Israeli media about the Davidian expose and Channel 13 canceling the broadcast, but I found nothing in the New York Times, nothing in the Washington Post or in any other mainstream US publication. So as usual, Nora, it's left to us and a few other small outlets to tell people the truth.
That's right. Well, I'm sure we'll continue to keep watching this and continue to keep debunking these just atrocious, disgusting lies. And thanks, Ali, for being so dogged about chasing this one, and exposing Sheryl Sandberg. I mean, just I don't know, her just her such obvious manipulation of people, and in promoting this new documentary, apparently that is supposed to show, how evil college students are, for not wanting a genocide.
And they're promoting it at a time when college students are being picked up by secret police and whisked off to distant detention centers.
Right.
It's evil what they're doing.
It is evil.
This propaganda to portray college students as pawns of Hamas and China and Iran, and to demonize them. It's evil what Sheryl Sandberg and anyone else who's involved in this film are doing. But the antidote to these lies is the truth that we tell you here at the Electronic Intifada. And by the way, once again, the Encampments as a film is the truthful counterpoint to this disgusting fake narrative of campuses being overrun by anti-Semitism.